So let's get off the ground and just stand up and let's do some warm up. So the first thing that I typically do, just shoulder warm up. And typically what I do as I rotate my arms, I stand up on my tippy toes once in a while to kind of stretch hamstrings, calf muscles, and so forth. And then we turn reverse order. All right, and that. Then we're gonna do some hip movements, usually circular motion, nothing really crazy. And then opposite directions. And reverse order. The next thing is kind of getting further down to the knees and knee joints. Circular motion. And opposite direction. If you hear a cracking noise, that's not a problem. Don't be alarmed. All right, that's it. All right, so one of the things that we've been doing is essentially just basic striking punches, and some kick defense, essentially just blocking kicks that are coming at you from either directions. So we can incorporate those as a part of the warm-up process. So from a neutral stance, we switch to fight stance, and that would make our profile to turn as well. Hands move forward, and we drop on our elevation a little bit, kind of bend our knees. Chin down, elbows tucked in. And from here, we throw the arm or the side of your body that is shifted forward. That's where you start, initiate the strike. So in this case, left is a jab, the same side as the leg is, jab, and then follow by a cross. So jab, cross, if I turn sideways, jab, cross, the other side, jab, cross, jab, cross. So what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna, after every jab, cross, we're gonna slightly change 45 degrees so that we cover all the four corners. So the first, we're facing the camera, you're facing me essentially, and then you throw a jab, cross, then you turn 45 degrees, jab, cross, 45 degrees, jab, cross, 45 degrees, that's 360 degrees. So essentially we're going cover four corners. Now with that, I want you to at any given time retain your stance. So even if you're turning, your stance should retain the fight stance, so it should not be turning parallel, legs side by side. All of a sudden, we don't want that. So you have to be mindful of your stance. So at any given time, you still retaining your fight stance. As you see, I'm not standing stiff here. My knees are slightly bent, and I want you guys to do the same thing. So never stand up like this with the knees locked. We want to slightly bend it, and that will help us to protect our knees in case we get a kick towards straight to the knee. So if that kick accidentally forces our knee to expand, it would absorb that and prevent that from being hyperextended. Because as we know, the knees are engineered to bend only in one direction and one direction only. So if you are already extended out with the knees locked, if a kick comes towards your knee will break because it will force it to bend the direction it's not designed to. So for that reason, you're going to bend it down, but this will also give you more agility and make you more fluid so that you can turn around and move very easily. So again, let's go together. To the count of 3. We're gonna turn, so jab cross, 25 degrees, jab cross, or 45 degrees rather, and we cover all 4 corners of the room. Guys ready? Go. Shh. 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 Reset. Check your stance, making sure you're retaining your stance. So feet should be shoulder wide, so shoulder apart. One forward, the other one back. So that way you have a good stance and good balance at the same time. One more time. Round number 2. Jab cross. Shh. 45 degrees turn. Shh. Another 45 degrees turn. Shh. Another 45. Shh. And reset. I have a yoga mat on the floor. You probably don't see it. Kind of helps me to kind of because typically when we work out, we have more of a cushiony floor, not hard floor like I have here. So sometimes it helps. If you do it on a carpet, that's probably even better. All right, and the last one. Again, reset. Check your stance. Make sure that your feet are shoulder wide apart and slightly bent. Ready? Go. Shh. 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 Last 45 degrees. Shh. And reset. All right, so that's essentially basic jab cross. So basic jab cross. Again, remember that when we punch, we want to punch only with the top 2 knuckles. So you got to make sure that you turn and make a really, really tight fist so that the tiny knuckles are kind of pushed away and tucked in versus the 2 top will get really exposed, like so. Then you got to make sure that you angle your fist in order to expose the top 2 knuckles. Now, when you're wearing gloves, 16 ounces, 14 ounces, or what have you, is more given because even if you don't hit the target with the top 2 knuckles, still wouldn't hurt you because you have a lot of padding going on. But we don't always wear gloves, obviously, when we walking on the street would look really weird. So for that reason, we need to kind of make sure that we get to the habit of exposing and punching only with the top 2 knuckles and nothing else. Okay. All right, so let's go back to our fight stance. So what we want to do next is essentially creating a kind of a barrier with our feet, kind of simulating a situation where you need to block or stop a kick that is coming at you. But again, it's really good practice as for shadow boxing, but also for continuation of the warm-up. Again, get to the fight stance. Your posture needs to be there. You need to be turning to profile, one shoulder closer to the opponent, and then the other one is rolled back. Your chin is down, elbows tucked in. So I don't want this, right? I want this. So you can protect your organs here. Soft tissues on the side. Knees are slightly bent, and the back leg the heel is lifted off the ground. I don't know if you can see that, but my heel is lifted up. Okay, so that's the posture we want to retain. So from here, as we throw a jab cross, as we recoil, and going back to the beginning of our stance, from here we're going to lift up the left leg, make it connect to the left elbow. Now, sometimes in the beginning when people do that, sometimes they kind of overdo it and they stab their own knee with the elbow. That's not a pleasant experience, so make sure you don't do that. Now, one little adjustment that I do in order to avoid that situation, to stabbing your own knee with elbow, which is painful, bring the elbow slightly inside your leg. So it kind of does not really, if you let it continue, it would just converge, sort of. So instead of stabbing it right here, bring it slightly in when you make a barrier. So again, the idea for this move is that you're blocking, you're creating a barrier using your knee your shin, but also your entire arm. The reason we want this to connect is that accidentally the kick does not slide in between the top of your knee and your elbow, because you might have a really good stance and a good block, but if that gap is there, there is a chance for the kick that's coming at you to get through and hit you in the ribs or your kidney or your liver in that case. So that's the whole idea of making the elbow to connect to the knee. So we're gonna do that again. So jab, cross, left knee, put it down. Jab, cross, right knee, put it down. Jab, cross, left knee. Jab, cross, right knee. Again, I'm not dropping my hand in order to make this. My hand is always in the front, level with my face and slightly away from my face. So it's not too far away and it's not too close either. And the reason for that is if it's too far, if a punch or a kick coming, it may converge still. And if it's too close, I might eat that punch or that kick anyway. So it has to be something in between. So hands should be slightly away from my forehead or face, but not too far. And you got to retain that. Now, if I stand sideways to the camera, maybe you can see that better. So jab, cross, left knee. Put it down, retain. Check your setting, reset your stance. Jab, cross, right knee. Put it down. Jab, cross, left knee. Put it down. Jab, cross, right knee. Put it down. And so forth. So let's do a few of these together. That would get the heart rate going, and then we're gonna move on. Okay, to the count of 3. Guys, get ready. Fight stance. Bend your knees slightly, elbows tighten, chin down, and you should not be square. You should be actually turning sideways. Guys, ready? To the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Go. Shh. 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 Last 2. And that's it. So very basic, but again, even though it's very basic stuff, it is something that really doesn't matter if you're a beginner, intermediate, kind of a practitioner, or even advanced. We always fall back to the basics because that's where the essence of any type of martial arts or defense system is, self-defense system is, because those are the basics that you can build upon. But if the basic is not there, it doesn't really matter how advanced you get or how many more advanced version of the original move or technique you learn. So we got to make sure our foundation is solid. All right. Now, last week we talked about elbows. You probably remember there are 7 of those. 3 delivered in a horizontal plane, and the remaining 4 on a vertical. So those are the things that are extremely important. Those are really good short range defense mechanisms. It does not require a whole lot of training, but yet it's very solid and powerful. Obviously, this bone is extremely dense and powerful, and it doesn't really take much to hurt someone, and in this case, an attacker, right? So very short range, you don't need a whole lot of room, you don't need to make too much noise, so to speak, and then you can just get down to the business and defend yourself. Forward, that's number 1, number 2, and number 3 being behind. You guys remember that. These are the 3 initial horizontal. The vertical ones are down to the solar plex, so the guy is behind you. You deliver a sharp elbow to the solar plex. To do that, you got to get your hip out of the way. Number 2 is you leaning diagonally, and then you throw a kind of a inverted uppercut with the elbow to the face. Again, the bad guy is still behind us in this case. And then the next one is forward, straight up. So it's very similar to the one delivered in the back. The only difference is that the person now is in front of you. Go straight up, like an uppercut. And then the last one is sort of a hammer type of attack, where it goes from up down, and that's typically delivered to the back of the neck of the bad guy. And really doesn't matter, as I usually say, if you're 100 pounds, 200 pounds, or 250 pounds individual, there is not much that you can do in terms of protecting or building muscles on the back of your neck. That's still very vulnerable. So for that reason, we leverage the elbow in that situation. All right. In Krav Maga, we talk often about 360. So what the 360 is essentially using our arms, the blade of the arm in this case, to create a barrier that gives us theoretically a 360 degrees protection. Okay, so what does that mean really? So, which means if I need to protect myself against a blunt object, stick, could be a knife, could be a piece of rock, any blunt object for that matter, I should be able to protect myself based on the trajectory of that movement towards my body. So essentially when something is coming at me from this angle, comes from high up versus a little bit lower, and then it could also come from ground up, so from the trajectory is different, it's coming actually upward, and then upward close range or a little bit farther away. So these are the essentially techniques that we use in an upward stabbing defense with a knife, that someone stabs from the bottom up, so the blade of the knife is upward. That also could be any blunt object, could also be a stick or just an uppercut for that matter, that's coming at you. So in theory, it starts from here and then it goes down for this situation, and then moves here and then further down here. So essentially what it is that I'm using the blade of my arm as a barrier to intercept an incoming trajectory of whatever that is, incoming a punch, a blunt object, stick, a knife, or just essentially just a, in this case, if it comes upward, an uppercut. All right. So what that means is that if someone tries to hit me with the bat or with a knife, what I'm going to do, I'm going to intercept that movement by intercepting my arm, the blade of my arm, against his wrist. Okay, so again, it's not a shallow block. It's not just it's a block and a stabbing movement. So it kind of reduces the impact immediately. So instead of just if something is coming at me and I just block it this way, there is a chance, because of the momentum of the incoming strike, that would still converge and hit me. So for that reason, it has to be really a lot of force behind it. So it's not just this, but it's this. The same thing on the other side. Now, if it's high, because it's coming from top down, then that's the movement. In this case, will be one at a time. So the other hand stays to protect the face. If it's a little bit lower, it's here. If it's kind of a waist or torso, kind of a height, is this. And then if it's coming from bottom up, then I'll drop. As you see in this situation, I kind of drop and I hinge. So I'm not gonna jump like this. So if there's a knife coming up upward, I'm not gonna just invade, kind of getting out of the way, like so, by jumping. All I have to do, just stay where I am, throw my hip and the torso away, because guess what the target is? The target is my soft tissues in the front, right? So if someone wants to stab me upward, they're not gonna go for my throat or my face. It's typically organs or the parts of my body that is closer to the blade. So for that reason, I need to protect myself immediately from here and not worrying too much about up here. The other thing is that I don't need to jump away to avoid that knife, because if I do that, I might not get stabbed or cut, but I have no force behind neutralizing the attack. So that, and typically in a situation with a knife attack, is never single stabs, it's always multiple. And unfortunately, what we see happening is that when someone gets stabbed or attacked by someone with a knife, whether it's coming downward or upward or straight, is never one single, is multiple and is rapid. So you may block the initial one, but the game just started, right? So you can't just do one single and then kind of a move to the sunset. That never works like that. So obviously we have other techniques to like knife control and disarming, which in that situation might be necessary. Although when it comes to knife versus a gun with a gun defense is always we are encouraged to finish that with a disarm, because it's a gun, and then if you don't disarm that person, they might chase you or shoot you as you're running away. With a knife, it's a little bit different. We have a little more flexibility because it's considered a short type of weapon, short range weapon, unless they're ninja and they throw the knife at you, which we haven't seen that happening very often, luckily. So knife is a close range weapon. You may or may not decide to disarm that person, but the important thing is to neutralize that attack as it gets initiated, and so that you can move to safety. So enough of that. So this is a basic. The reason I put that into the context for you, so you know what this 360 is and what you should be using it for. So kind of putting application behind it. All right. So stand up. We can actually, in this case, we can be neutral stance. So feet side by side, pretty much shoulder wide. From here, we bring our hands in the front, and then we start high up, like so, and then we drop it, and then the elbows stay up and the hands drop, because now we're gonna be defending from something that comes upward. And then the last one is lower, which in this case, here I'm gonna push my hip away and hinge forward. And that's the technique, especially with a knife, because I wanna make sure that not only I block that arm at the wrist level, but I'm gonna get my vulnerable tissues also out of the way, because guess what? Typically a knife is 6, 8, or 10 inches long, right? So to account for that, that maybe I block it a little bit too close to my body, I don't wanna take any risk to stop it here, but I can stop it here. So getting my hip out of the way, which would force my torso to move away from the danger zone as well. Again, in many situations when I teach gun defense or knife attack defense, it is messy. You may get caught, you may start bleeding because of scratches or what have you, but the idea is not to get stabbed. So we don't want the knife to penetrate through the skin and go deep inside. Cuts, that's okay. You may start bleeding and whatnot. Cuts is okay, but obviously penetration of the blade into our body, that's a no-no. Okay. All right. So again, it's called 360 defense. It covers 360 degrees. And again, it's not as shallow just holding your hands like triangle, whatever you want to call that. It really has force behind it. So I'm going to engage my muscles all the way from shoulder into my forearm and to where the fingers are. So it's very firm. So it has a lot of power. Again, it's actually stabbing at the same time. So I want you kind of keep that in mind. That is not just a shallow block, like so, but there is power behind it. So you want to put structure behind it so that not only you neutralize that the attack coming at you, but also stabbing it and hurting that person, hopefully. And then from here, you can do a lot of things like grabbing the arm and then going in for this arm, knee to the face, or to sort of place elbow, hammer, or whatever that you as a follow-up techniques. We're not going to get to that for now. We're just going to practice on 360. Again, feet side by side, starts high up, then goes lower, then hands drop, the elbows stay up, and lower. So that's sort of a, in theory, 360 degrees of protection. Boom, 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 and boom. The last one, I want you to remember that when you're from here, go to down, I want you to hinge over, and that will make your hip to move back, and torso being in a much safer zone from danger, whatever that round object might be. All right, so that's 360. Now, the other thing we want to do here is typically in a stand-up, in a kickboxing context, when you throw your moves, you throw your combatives, as you see, I want your head to constantly move and not be stationary, right? If that's bad news, because that person that is actually fighting in front of you, they exactly know where they have you. And you may throw a punch at them, they get the bob and weave, or they kind of drop and getting out of the range of the punches. And then if you're stationary there, your head is not moving, guess what? They're gonna retaliate, they're gonna come back and go for your face immediately. So it's always a good idea to incorporate head movements with your whatever, in this case, punches that you throw. So let's get back up, fight stance. Now, as we throw punches, I want your head to start moving around. And then we're gonna duck. So jab, cross, duck. And back to, my feet are not moving at all. So the only thing I'm doing is just dropping, ducking, which means if a punch comes at my face, I'm gonna duck underneath it. Obviously, in this case, it's just straight down, like squat. And we have also this type of technique, getting out of the range, right? And then we have bob and weave, or shh, shh. You might have seen that, the boxers do that quite a bit. So if a punch comes at me, I'm gonna get out of the way, by kind of a dropping, and so it's not a squat or ducking, it's actually moving to the side, and as if you draw a U in the air. Shh. And the other way around. Shh. Obviously, there are other techniques that follow up with that type of bob and weave. Essentially, when I get out of the range or out of the way from a punch coming at my face, now my profile is shifted, so my body is turned this way, which means now I have chambered a lot of kinetic energy in my right hand, and from here I can throw a right cross. When I'm moving to the left side, now my weight and my body is shifted to the other side, and from here I throw a hook. So before we incorporate that, let's concentrate on hooks. So hooks are essentially movements that go in sort of a circular movement. So the trajectory is different. It's not a linear movement. It's circular. As you see, my elbow is bent. It goes short. So for that reason, you essentially out of the range for a jab or a cross. When you decide to go in for a hook, could be a body hook or towards the face, you essentially getting closer to the opponent in order to kill that gap. Because now, if I'm in a one arm length away from my opponent, from here, I can jab and cross all day. Let's assume that the range is there for my jab cross. but for my hook is not, because my hook now is quite shorter than a straight punch. So what do? I need to move in. So typically I can advance by stepping in as much as I need to, depending on my range, to create that type of a range that I need to deliver that. But for now, since we kind of still in the kind of shadow boxing and we don't have a partner, at least keep that in mind for now. So again, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna throw a jab cross, so left, right, bring it back in, left hook, right hook. Again, with the hook, I want the elbow to pop up. And as you see here, my hand immediately turns in, and I should be facing my palm, even though it's a closed fist, but my hand, I should be facing inside my hand. So from here, when I go to a hook, the hand turns this side and the elbow pops up. Now, how much do I do that? How much do I lift? Approximately forehead level. So from here, when I go jab, cross, when I bring it for my first left hook, it should be forehead level. So I'm almost ducking underneath my own hook, so that's the ideal. Again, if I can punch someone, that person most likely can return the favor, right? So by kind of minimizing the chance for me to get, because I'm exposing, every time I punch, I'm exposing myself to receive a punch. So it's all about small margins of error that we're trying to reduce and eliminate. So when you transition from jab, cross, and you're ready to throw a hook, see my elbow pops up, parallel to the ground, and I'm ducking almost behind my own hook. So that's the left hook. You bring it back in, and then you switch in place. Now remember, in this situation, we always want to pivot. We want to pivot on the same side foot. So in this case, if I'm throwing a left hook, my front leg, which is also left, is gonna turn, gonna pivot on the tippy toes. Let's just change the angle a little bit more. So from here, when I transition to a hook, that's what happens to my feet. So as you see, my heel is lifted off the ground, and I'm pivoting my foot, which will make my hip to pivot as well, which will make my torso and my shoulder and my whole body to pivot as well. The reason for pivoting is to generate more torque and more energy behind your striking. As always, we use our entire body if we have to. And as a matter of fact, when it comes to a fight situation, you always want to be able to use every inch of your body. So we better train every inch of our body when it comes to a situation like that. So again, jab cross, we've done that. You bring it in. Now you're getting ready for your first hook, which is the arm that is forward in relation to the other one that is back. So same side, you pivoting on your same side foot by lifting up the heel and pivoting on the toe, and you bring it back in, and then the opposite side, same thing. Now, make sure you don't exaggerate this, because in a fight situation, this is bad news. If you expose your back to your opponent, you don't know what's gonna come. Maybe that person will definitely strike and take advantage of that situation. And if that person is a grappler, then that's heaven for them. Grabbing someone from behind, they know how to deal with that. So make sure you don't overturn. That's basically the message here. So turn enough, but don't exaggerate this. And the other mistake that I've seen people make when they throw a hook, whether it's a left or a right, they tend to chamber. They open up the chest, go all the way out, and becomes like a haymaker. Haymakers might be powerful because your hand gets to travel a longer distance, and the longer distance, the more momentum it creates in the space. but by far they're relatively slower. So a haymaker might be more powerful, but you're broadcasting that to the entire world, and that person can read you and see you and probably get out of the way of punch you straight and neutralize you. So make sure that you don't get to the habit of haymakering with the hook or the other side, kind of opening all the way up. Again, the more I open up, the more vulnerable I become and more predictable. So these are the two really bad factors in any type of fight situation: to be predictable and obviously in this case being extremely slow, because this versus this is a lot slower. As you see, even when I demonstrate that through a shadow box, this versus this, or this versus this. So speed and predictability, these are the two factors that could be played kind of negatively against your odds. So make sure you don't do that. So back to fight stance: jab, cross, throw the elbow up, but not too high or not this way either. It really has to be parallel. So my arm should really be parallel to the ground. Okay, so jab, cross, left, right hook. And with that, I'm pivoting my hip, which really that pivoting is coming from the ground because I'm pivoting on my toes first. So when you're shadow boxing in front of the mirror or what have you, when you get a chance, please incorporate the pivoting all the way from ground, from your heel to your hip, to your torso, shoulder, and eventually your arm. All right, so let's do that. You guys ready? So we do 4 strikes: jab, cross, left hook, right hook, reset. Let's do it. We count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Again. 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 2 more. Last one. And reset. So that's 4 basic combination: jab, cross, left hook, right hook, and bring it back in. See, at any given time, if one hand is busy doing strikes, the other hand stays to protect the face. Boom. Boom. Like so. Again, that's something that is universal. It doesn't matter really what you do. If one hand is striking, the other one has to protect, and vice versa. All right, next one is uppercut. Again, uppercut is very similar to left hook in terms of the short range. Obviously, you can let that to travel a little bit higher up depending on the opponent's height, but typically these are short bursting strikes. Again, just like a hook, you don't want this. People tend to do that, again, opening all the way up because they want to create momentum, but that's extremely slow and predictable. So you don't want to do that. So again, with uppercuts, it's really short and condensed. And it's still powerful, believe me. Now, what I do to generate power without compromising my posture and my speed, instead of doing this to create momentum and torque behind my punch, I drop and then you gotta come up. So I go down and then I bring it up. Again, when I bring it up, it's not only my hand going up, my entire body goes with it. So as if my elbows are glued to the side of my body. So that's a really good practice to get to the habit of not letting this happen, not letting this happen, not letting this happen, right? It has to be nice and condensed and close. This has to be very tight. So from here, so I drop and then raise up to my punch. I drop like an elastic band. That's what I usually, that's the analogy I use. Like an elastic band, you You extract it. Now there's a lot of kinetic energy built and you let it go. That's the exact same thing. So muscles are tense, and you bring it up, boom. Tense, bring it up, boom, release that energy. So that's exactly the same. A burst of energy that is quick, fast, and unpredictable. So again, you go jab, cross, left hook, right hook, left uppercut, right uppercut, reset. So we have 6 punches or 6 combination strikes. Jab cross, left hook, right hook, left uppercut, right uppercut. Again, my stance retains the same. So all the time, my knees are bent, my back leg is lifted off the ground, so my heel is up, as you can see, but the rest of the foot is on the ground. So I'm not going to let slide because I'm throwing a jab or a cross or an uppercut. My feet are pretty much glued to the ground, but my hip and my knees and everything else is still fluid and upper body. And I want that capability also when you're practicing this. So I'm not moving around and changing stance right now. I could, but right now I don't really need that. This is my stance. I retain that. And when I go for a jab cross, left hook, left uppercut, right uppercut, my feet are glued. And my stance is completely stays the same. All right? All right. Having that said, we have about 6 minutes left to go. I want to open up for some questions. So let's put all of that together. You guys ready? We do 6 movements. Jab cross, left hook, left uppercut, right uppercut. That's it. You guys ready? To the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Reset. Go. Reset. Go. Reset. Go. And that's it. So again, slow motion. I'm going to turn to the side. Jab, cross, left hook, right hook, left uppercut, right uppercut, reset. That's again, my feet are not moving, even though I'm fluid. My head is moving, my shoulders are moving, my torso is moving, my hip, everything else, knees, my feet are just glued on the ground at this point. All right. So what we want to do now, we want to throw a duck in between every 2 punches. So 1, 2, drop, duck, left hook, right hook, drop, uppercut, uppercut, drop. Again, it's very similar to a squat. The main difference is that instead of my feet being side by side, they're slightly on 2 different planes here. So one foot forward, the other one back behind it, and slightly lifted off the ground, as you know. So, you guys ready? We do a few of that and then we open up for questions and answers. All right, get up, fight stance, elbows tucked in, chin down, knees bent. So every 2 punch combination, as you recoil, you duck. You're gonna be pretending as if you're ducking away from a punch coming at you. All right, so it should not be too shallow. Try to squat, go down and come up, right? Without compromising your posture. I don't want this. So your back should still, don't kind of bend. Your back should still be solid. You're just dropping, exactly like a squat. Okay? You guys ready? Let's do it. Go. Reset. Change your form. Make sure your stance is there. Ready? Go. Last one. set. All right, good job, guys. Again, unfortunately, I don't get to see you guys, but as you see, I did break a sweat. I hope you guys did that too. A quick recap. So what we did was straight punches. We threw in some hooks, uppercuts. We talked about 360 defense. And just basic foot movements and pivoting as usual to generate more torque and power and more structure behind your punches in this case. We also talked about defending a roundhouse kick coming at you by essentially just lifting up the knee, letting the knee to slightly touch the elbow. So that's a full barrier here. And the same thing on the other side.